Okay, friends, here we go. We are in Jerusalem. So yesterday we talked about that triumphal entry into Jerusalem. I'm actually going to be preaching on that this Sunday also in Cornerstone. So I hope that you'll check that out. And what we're going to see today is the first thing that he does when he gets there. So what you're going to see is that at the beginning of chapter 21, actually it may go all throughout chapter 21, no, about halfway through, you get three symbolic things that Jesus does. The triumphal entry in, and then you get the two things that we're going to look at today. So pay attention to what God may be saying to you through this. I'm going to give you a lot of historical context, what this would have looked like at the time, reflect a little bit on what it might mean for us today, but you really be doing that work also, saying, okay, this is what this would have looked like at the time, what Jesus is up to. What does it tell me about what Jesus might be up to today in our larger world and in my life in general? So here we go. Verse 12. Jesus entered the temple and drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. What's happening here? So Jesus goes up onto the Temple Mount. If you've seen pictures of the Dome of the Rock today, that gold dome in Jerusalem, this is where the Temple Mount was. In fact, the retaining wall that is around the Temple Mount today is the same retaining wall that was there when Jesus was alive. Same stones. It's a huge complex. And at the time, the temple would have been there, but then around the temple would have been some other areas, including an area that non-Jews could go in. And that's the area where this is taking place, where even non-Jews can go. And they are welcomed to come there and to worship God, but they can't go like all the way into the complex. And in that area, there were two kinds of booths that would have been set up. One was a booth where you could buy animals that were suitable for sacrifice. So you get the pigeons here. There are other animals that you could buy also, because if you have traveled from a long way away, you're way up in Galilee, you're not bringing an animal with you. You're going to get there, buy an animal, and then present the animal to be sacrificed. This whole system was run by the priests. We're not going to go into this today, but we will another time. The whole priest system was very, very corrupt at the time. So they're the ones who determine if your animal is suitable for sacrifice. They're the ones who sell the animals, set the prices for the animals, all of those things. They run this whole thing. And all of this is taking place actually in this holy area where non-Jews can come and worship. So that's one kind of booth. The other kind of booth is that you couldn't use Roman coinage to buy animals suitable for sacrifice. So you'd come in, you would take your Roman coinage and you would exchange it for a kind of coinage that would be acceptable. So you've got booths where you can buy the animals and booths where you can exchange your money for money that you can use to buy these animals. Make sense? The whole thing is run by these priests. And again, it is a corrupt order. Jesus is probably concerned about the system as a whole. People are being taken advantage of and all those things. What Jesus is definitely concerned about is the location of these booths. Okay? People need to be able to buy animals. People need to be able to exchange money. And they should be able to do that in a way where they're not being scammed. They probably were being scammed. But Jesus definitely is upset with the fact that these booths are set up in the actual temple complex. And they are set up in the courtyard of the Gentiles, where people who were non-Jews are invited to come into worship. And right there in that area where the Jews should be welcoming in people from all nations to introduce them to God, instead what the priests are doing is they are selling things and taking advantage of other people. Maybe he would have been fine with the booths being outside. He definitely doesn't think that they need to be there. So he overturned these tables and the money changer seats. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, and you made it a den of robbers." Probably a bad idea what you're doing in general. How dare you do it in my Father's house? What's going on here? Well, the odds are that Jesus left and the money changers turned their tables back over, set back up their seats, the pigeon dealers, and got back to business, okay? The odds are that Jesus didn't actually affect any kind of change that day. Jesus is doing this as a symbolic act letting people know that what is happening is not right, and causing such a stir that it is sure to get the attention of this ruling class of priests, the Sadducees. It is sure to get their attention, and Jesus knows that when he gets their attention in this way, he's in trouble. In fact, many scholars believe, and it makes a lot of sense, that this is the moment when Jesus signs his own death certificate. Or not death certificate, like a warrant to be killed, whatever you call that. When he does this, he knows that that is going to trigger him being crucified. So he does it, and this is what he also did. And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. So now he's healing people right there in front of everybody. You'll remember that there have been times when Jesus has wanted to keep who he is and his ability to heal others a secret. Now it's on full display. Why? Because the time has come. There is no more secret about who he is. It's on full display. And when the chief priests, these were Sadducees, and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were indignant. So they see the wonderful things that he's doing, and they don't like them. And who is it that's crying out to him, Hosanna to the Son of David? It's the children. Go back with me to 18, verse 3. Do you remember what Jesus says there? He says to a group of people, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Who is it that's leading the way? Who is it we should model ourselves after? It is the children shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David." They said to him, "Do you hear what they're saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouth of infants and nursing babes, you have prepared praise?" The Sadducees are saying, do you see what they're calling out to you? Do you see that they are putting you on this pedestal? Do you see what they're believing about you? Jesus says, "Yeah, I do. And it is out of the mouths of children and babies that God said that praise would come." He's saying, yeah, not only do I hear them, but they're actually saying the right thing. And leaving them, he went out of the city to Bethany, and he lodged there. So at the time, Passover, estimates range from anywhere from 150, 180,000 people to 1 million people in Jerusalem. Normally it's a city of, I don't know, somewhere in the 5 figures. So the size of the city is at least going to double. Some people think it like quadruples, more than that. That you've got maybe even 10 times as many people as are normally there, to 1 million people. My math is way off on all of this stuff. But you got a lot of people in there. Now, there's not room for everybody to be housed in the city. He goes out to the outskirts of town in Bethany, and he stays there. In the morning, as he was returning to the city, he became hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the wayside, he went to it and found nothing on it but only leaves. And he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered at once. It's a famous story. What in the world is happening here? One of the things that we know is that the fig tree should not be producing figs at this time of year. In fact, some of the other Gospels actually point that out, that it wasn't fig season. So what is Jesus doing? This is the third symbolic act. Walking in and getting on the donkey, the triumphal entry. We'll talk about more on Sunday. We talked about that yesterday. The turning over the money changers stuff, saying, look, this is supposed to be a house of prayer, and doing that, knowing that that would lead to his crucifixion. And now this act of withering this fig tree. What's the deal here? Well, it's not fig season. So why does he punish a tree for not bearing fruit during fig season? We were in Israel a year and a half ago. We're walking up this trail way up in the northern part of Israel, and we see a fig tree. And our guide points it out, and she says, "This is a fig tree." And on it were these little fruit-looking things. And she said, those aren't figs, those are called pugs. And what pugs are is they are something that grows out of the tree when it's out of season, and they don't actually turn into figs, but what they let you know is that the tree is still alive. It's still a fruit-producing tree. It's the way that most fruit trees produce flowers, and that it's from where those flowers are that the fruit will later grow. Fig trees don't produce flowers, they produce these things called pugs. And if there's no pug on the tree, then you know that it's not going to be a fruit-bearing tree. Look, this is right after Jesus has gone into the temple, seen what's taking place, caused a big stir there. What's he saying? He's saying, look, here's the deal. What is happening in the temple is like what is happening with this fig tree. This fig tree, even though it's out of season, has no sign that it will one day produce fruit. There are no pugs on it. It's clearly a dead tree. It's not producing fruit now, and that's fine. It's not supposed to be producing fruit now. But there are no pugs on it either, which means that there's no indication that it will one day produce fruit. As if he's saying to those that are following him, pay attention. We were in the temple yesterday. We're walking back down into Jerusalem. Do you see any signs that what is happening in that place is ever going to produce the good fruit that God intended to come out of that place? I mean, it's supposed to be a place where people come, that Jews come, the people of God, to experience forgiveness, to experience healing, to experience welcoming. It's supposed to be a place, the very place we were standing yesterday. It's supposed to be a place where non-Jews, Gentiles can come, and they can begin to experience the goodness of who our God is. It's supposed to be a place where people from all different nations come and they meet God and they find forgiveness and they find the life that is truly life. It's supposed to be that place. Is there anything that you are seeing in that place that is leading you to believe that it will produce that kind of fruit? Not only is it not producing that fruit now, but is there anything that you see that leads you to believe that it will produce that fruit one day? And of course, the answer was a resounding no. Not only are there no figs on that tree, but there are no pugs either. There's no indication that this is headed in the right direction. Do you see what's happening here? Jesus is making an example of the fig tree because he's saying this is what's happening with the religious institution of the time. Jesus came to bring a revolution. Jesus came to bring a new way for people to enter into the fullness of life, into a life with God. And just like we talked about when we were talking about the Sermon on the Mount, it's not that he builds a new mountain, it is that he builds on top of the one that is already there. And it's the same thing here. It's not that he completely does away with the system and starts over, but instead what he is going to do in a few days is that he is going to build a mountain on the top of the Temple Mount metaphorically. Where it's not that he's doing away with the sacrificial system, but what he's doing is that he is himself becoming that ultimate sacrifice. Saying we're no longer going to need this, not because it's obsolete, because it wasn't ever right or anything like that. We no longer need this because I am going to be the once and for all sacrifice. That system is no longer bearing fruit. Put your trust in me. Follow after me. And you'll find that what I am doing will bear fruit in your life. What we're seeing here, friends, is we're seeing the way that God had interacted with his people previously. We're seeing that way fade away. And on top of it, we're seeing a new way being birthed. That Jesus becomes the way into truth and life, both for the Jews and for the non-Jews. He becomes the way in which people can experience the life that is truly life. He becomes the way that people can experience forgiveness and community and all those things. I hope this is making sense. Highly metaphorical. But Jesus starts his time in Jerusalem with these three symbolic acts. And we're going to keep going from here, looking at what happens as Jesus spends this last week in Jerusalem. God bless you, friends. Keep up with your reading. We are almost done with this, and I'll see you soon.